Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Taking Stock Live. And we're thrilled today to have Julie Averill, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Lululemon, with us today. I know we're in for an incredible conversation with Julie. Julie is inspirational, and she leads some of the areas I'm deeply passionate about, which of course is retail and technology, but also women in STEM. And if that isn't enough, she's also the mother of three. So Julie, huge welcome to you today.
Thank you, Shelley. That's a very kind introduction. I appreciate that. And I'm also looking forward to the conversation. So thanks for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, you have spent a lot of time in this space and worked for some of the most admired brands in the world. Maybe first just take us back and tell us about your first job in retail.
Well, the first job that I usually talk about in retail is my job at Nordstrom. But my honest first job in retail started when I was in high school. I worked at Wendy's. Right. And I flipped burgers, I worked the register, and on Sundays I'd put the red wig on in the bloomers, and I'd go and I'd hand balloons out to kids. And what I really learned to love about retail is I loved the transactions with the customers. I really learned about the power of teams, right? So if I was up there and I was calling out an order and people weren't paying attention, the whole thing, this was before the days of all the automation that we have today, right? So I'd call out the orders and people had to be paying attention. And when I was working the line, I had to pay attention to the order that was being called out. So you learned every single role, and you were a team, and you understood bottlenecks and efficiencies and how to make things better. And so I just like that fundamental aspect of being part of a team. I learned about, and I also learned about efficiencies and workflow. And I also learned that I didn't want to work fast food for the rest of my life.
It's so important, though, because I, too, in high school, I worked at the Limited Express folding sweaters. And, I have teenage kids now. And I think more than, maybe the roles we occupy today, those kinds of jobs, whether it's, taking signals from customers or operational pieces, they're the life lessons that you carry, and the grit it takes to push through. They're the life right. lessons that we take with us in these new roles, in right. these years. Right. So fast forward from Wendy's, but I wish I could probably spend a lot of time there. Tell us about, you spent over a decade, I think, at Nordstrom. You're right. REI's first ever CIO, and now Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at Lululemon. So tell us about your journey to Lululemon.
Right. Well, in the early days of my career, I was really interested in growing my career, right? Interested in bigger, harder challenges, interested in solving for the company, interested in growing my career. And I had lots of really exciting opportunities to do that. I got in at Nordstrom at a time when it was just Nordstrom.com getting merged back in with Nordstrom Inc. And that was really an interesting time, right? So you had .com meets 100-year-old company, integration of those two things together. I got to build Nordstrom's first mobile app. And then I was involved in the multi-channel journey, and I got to lead a lot of that, which was really fascinating, thinking about how to make Nordstrom stores into fulfillment hubs, right? And we had no idea at the time of the power of that. So we were doing really an integration project of taking away an old fulfillment system called econometry. And this was the last piece of it. And we realized that we had to build an interface to the stores for the beauty orders. And we thought, well, why don't we just build it for all the orders? And it seemed like an obvious question. And in doing so, We had no idea how many orders would actually flow through to the stores. And we figured it out on that day when all of the orders were being printed on register tape because, that's what we had. And so the stores, like the register tape, just started printing and printing and printing. And I had one of the leaders call me from the Chicago store, and he said, Julie, I'm standing here in the Chicago store, and I have 21 feet of register tape with all orders on it. What should I do? And I said, I think you should start fulfilling orders. It was crazy. So I just had these incredible opportunities in my career. Part of it was just timing. And I think a lot of it was just like this curiosity that I have for how can technology meet business need. And that's what I'm drawn by, right? I just love technology, and I'm fascinated by inefficiencies or opportunities and how we can bring the two together. And so I've had these incredible chances and have been able to drive some really cool business results as a part of that. And then I got to do the same project actually at REI, where we did store fulfillment at REI, but then I also got a chance to broaden and, as a CIO, do things like cloud strategy and infrastructure and merchandise planning and other things that I hadn't done previously. And then I think as I have advanced in my career, I've found that there are other things that are more important to me other than title and initiatives. It's more to me now about values. And what's really important to me as a human now is living my life authentically, being in a place where I can do that and where I can promote things like equality and inclusion, and not just make a difference inside my company, but make a difference in the world. And that's what I have at Lululemon. And so, I have all the opportunities to lead a tremendous organization where we are making incredible differences inside the company with technology. All of our strategy, right? So we're a growth company, and our strategies are to expand in the markets in which we exist and others. That all requires technology, right? We've put in 9 international websites and growing in the last couple of years. Our international markets are growing very, very fast. It's all about creating great product, innovative product, which we continue to do. And there's so much technology that is required to increase the pace at which we can do that with efficiencies. So technology is really tied to that strategy. And then omni-channel experiences, which is, requires so much technology. So those are our company strategies. Technology is tied to all of those, and I get the opportunity to play in all of those. But broader than that, it's how I get to lead as a leader in the organization, and broader.
I mean, it's so inspiring. And as you were talking, I could see myself and maybe all the viewers out there and what you're talking about, because I do think when you're earlier in your career, it is about the title and the promotion and the advancement. And as you move along, the privilege is actually, as you said, how do I now begin to take that and apply it to my values and my company's values and, the difference that I want to make. Given that we are working so very hard, you want to have impact. And it seems to me like, just looking at the brands you've worked for and with, impact and values have been part of your DNA from the very beginning. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. Yeah, it's always important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, speaking of that, it also sounds like STEM has been a big place where you've put your passion and your know-how. Will you talk a little bit about why and how
Yeah.
on the STEM side?
Yeah, it starts from a very personal place for me as well. When I was I got my degree in computer science, back in the dark ages, and got it not because I thought there were career opportunities, honestly. I got my degree in computer science because I love technology, and I tried another degree, international business, and I just wasn't passionate about it. I could not get passionate about the classes. And so I felt like I was sacrificing my professional future by getting a computer science degree. I didn't have any role models. I didn't know what opportunities were ahead for me, but I just loved it so much. So that's why I got my degree in computer science. And honestly, the day that I decided to get a degree in computer science, the way I justified it was I said, okay, I'll get an MBA after this. And so, I believe, and I look at the numbers right now of women in STEM, and they're dismal, right? There's so many opportunities. And I think the reason that we as women don't go into STEM as a field is because we still have that stereotype that there aren't amazing career opportunities for us or won't be fully fulfilled. And so, I have a daughter who is 19 now, and I saw her struggles with that same thing. And, now she's like, I'm really happy to say that she is studying in a program that she's super happy about, and it is STEM. But it took her a long time to just get over that mindset of the stereotypes that are associated with it. And so, STEM is so important because there's so many incredible careers, but we have to work harder. And I think it starts early education of helping girls understand that STEM is cool, right? STEM is something that middle school girls should get excited about, and they just don't today. And then that feeds into high school, that feeds into college, where there are so many opportunities.
It's so true. And it's almost, I'm happy you're saying that, Julie, because working in for a technology company, you have to take me back and remind me that it's not, some people don't think it's cool because it seems so, it's how we're going to change the world. It's how girls will change the world. But and we, I look at my own numbers on my team, and it's not where it needs to be. And coming from retail to technology, sitting in, leadership reviews and seeing that I'm the only woman, it's shocking to me that.
And frustrating, right?
There,
because people like you and me sit here like, where are all the ladies around me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And especially in our world, where 70% of the purchase decisions around the world are made by women, the fact that we're not influencing the capabilities enough on how those purchases get made makes me crazy. Right.
And I sit in a place of privilege right now because at Lululemon, 80% of our population is women. 60% of all the leaders, the senior leadership and above, including our board of directors, is women. So we're very much an exception to the rule. However, within technology, we still work very hard to try to break those stereotypes, and we're not where we need to be today. So we are working, but we're still fighting the same societal stereotypes as everybody else is.
That's right. And I am too. And it begins, like to be kind of traditional about it, begins with good pipeline. And if you don't have the women coming up in the ranks, because I look at the recruiting loops aggressively and say, like, I don't have enough diversity here. But it's we got to reach far in early where your daughter was and younger to middle school to make girls involved. So what words of advice do you give to girls thinking about pursuing a career in computer science like you did, or technology in general?
Yeah, I wish I had a silver bullet for it. Obviously, there's not one silver bullet. If I get a chance to talk to girls, like my kids' friends, my kids are always like, "Mom, don't do it. Don't corner her." I'm like, "No, I got one. I have a live one." I know, it's like there's such opportunity. So whenever I have a chance, I just, especially one that's interested, I'm gonna talk to them. But I think like getting the teachers involved, right? Getting the teachers to do the reach out where they have the connections, getting the parents involved so that they can help engage. Like there's larger systematic issues. But for the women who are in STEM already, how do we help keep them engaged and give them a community, right? That's one of my focus areas right now, right? And so, helping the women find their voice and feel like it's not only acceptable, it's required for them to speak their voice. We need to hear from the women, right? We need them to be heard. We need them to show up and to be part of the future. I think that's really important. We need to change the table so that the table is equal for everybody.
Completely. And I love what you said about community and keeping them engaged, because I think we often, and I see this with the young women that I work with, they'll retreat before they push forward. And we gotta, like, the engagement in the community is key to combating that behavior, because we need them. I mean, and to your point, it's I think it's really, it's really cool what they can do. So I think also seeing that is incredibly important.
Right. They have a bravery and a perspective that I know that I didn't have when I was going through it.
Same. Well, I went the other way. I started with business and then backed my way into technology because I know I needed that in order to actually do the work I wanted to do. But in both cases, you need the bravery for sure.
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit now, I actually had the privilege to go to your Corte Madera store yesterday. And going to your stores is actually, it's just always fun for me. It was Halloween. So the store associates were passing out really healthy treats to the kids coming into the store. But you can just feel when you walk into a Lululemon store that it's a lifestyle brand and that the people who are in the store working there are happy to be there. We both started on the front line of retail. How are you thinking about sort of your front line and the role they play in the experience, and then technology in support of your front line?
Yeah. Well, I think what you saw, that that community engagement, that one-to-one, so we call our store associates our educators. That's what's critical for us to maintain, because that is our special sauce in our stores, is that connection. And so we really look at technology as an enabler for our stores and for our educators. We don't want it to ever come in the way. So we think of technology really as invisible in our stores, but it's very present. So we were one of the first companies really to have RFID in our stores. And it's a game changer for the retail industry when you can really have RFID on every item like we've had for many years. So we have very accurate inventory in our stores that has been translated to online availability, which allows us to have a very low cancel rate. And we've been able to build services on top of that, right? Like buy online, pickup in store, for example, and store fulfillment, all based on high accurate inventory. But for the educators, right, the opportunity for us is to just make things super easy. And I think when we look ahead, it's simplification and enablement, both for the educators and for the guests, so that technology is never a barrier. It just helps them, and they're not thinking about the technology. They just think about the great products and the great services, the great relationship that they have with Lululemon, and they're not thinking about technology. They're not getting frustrated with technology. They're not thinking about a gadget. They're interacting with Lululemon, and the technology is not the front of mind.
I couldn't agree more. And as a technology provider, I have to constantly remind, myself and my team, like, we're the ingredient brand. And actually our goal, as you said, is to be invisible, but to enhance, the educator, the consumer experience, and it's easy to kind of fall in love with the tech, but that's not the end. Actually, the tech should fade away if it's good.
Right.
So if that's sort of how you're thinking about your educators or your store associates, how about, there's so much talk about the future of this. I mean, how many blogs have we all read? Stores are going to go away, and, software is going to eat retail, or, the future of the store. But I don't know. I feel like stores are still a really great place to go. They're changing a lot. How are you thinking about sort of the future of the store?
Yeah, our stores are not going away.
Right.
Our stores are here to stay. We're investing in stores, and technology will continue to be a critical part. But like I said before, it's an enabler. So it will continue to be streamlined, even simplified even more, right? It'll be faster. There'll be fewer choices. Information will be served up easier. More automation, more technology, just making things as simple as possible, both for the educator and for the guest.
It makes complete sense. And, as we sort of close out, obviously you have big weeks and months ahead with the holiday season. It's been a complicated year, to say the least. As you think about the closeout of this calendar year and getting ready for the next, any sort of closing thoughts on 2021?
I think it's a year of opportunity. And I think, we were talking about careers and opportunities, I would tell people there are lots of opportunities. I know so many people are in flux about where do I work? Am I going to resign forever? Am I going to go into retail? Am I going to go into technology? And there are so many choices. And I would just say to those people, this is the time to reflect on who you are, right? I go back to that authenticity piece. Who are you as a person, and who do you want to be? And what are your values? What's important to you as a person? Find some place where you are truly you, and you're able to pursue your dreams and your goals, both short-term and long-term, and be your full self.
Wow, I love that. And I have a favorite quote by Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself, everyone else is taken."
Yeah.
And you just said it. And yeah, I do too. And so, honestly, I have to have it on a sticky note on my computer, because sometimes we show up in how we think the world wants us to be. But I think if there's anything we've learned in the last 18 months is this is a moment, and it will continue to be a moment for authenticity as people are reevaluating everything. And so having, someone like you at the helm of a lifestyle brand and all these, interests that you have and passion areas, I think it bodes incredibly well for the retail industry. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Shelley.
Yeah, it's been really an incredible conversation. I know you're fresh back from a trip to India where you're opening up even new capabilities and innovation. So thank you for making time on your incredibly busy schedule to be with us today.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you, Shelley. Thank you so much.
No, I did too. I'm ready to go do some STEM recruiting with you.
No, let's do it. Let's do it.
And for all of you out there who have been watching this conversation, thank you to you for your time and attention as well. I learned a lot. I also always love to get your feedback of what's working for you and what's not working for you. So thanks for joining us for another edition of Taking Stock Live. And then again, just a huge shout out and thank you to Julie and the Lululemon team for joining us today and being a great partner of Microsoft's along the way. So thank you. Hey!